Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
How are you, Jerred?
I'm great. Can't you tell?
Yeah.
I sound amazing. And we're also here with Robert Guillen. How's it going, man?
It's going great.
I'm excited to get into this. You've been very involved in the community since day one, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more about your story. But we'll just get right into it. So, I'll let you do the introduction. They got your name, but what do you do? How do you train? Where are you from? All that good stuff.
I'm from Sparks, Nevada, but it's just easier to tell people that I'm from Reno because we're essentially two cities that are connected. If you've ever been here, you'd understand that. So I've been a Nevada boy my whole life. I'm an electrical contractor. I have a business partner, so I handle the service department of our company. And you probably get that from my many Garage Gym Athlete posts. I'm super personable. I love going into people's houses, getting to know people, helping them out, making them happy. That's kind of my gifting. Been married 20 years, got 3 girls that I'm not sure if they're going to kill me or if I'm going to kill them. I'm at that teenage stage where, nobody agrees. So every morning's like this little bit of tension. You wonder if you're going to make it through, but it's cool. I have great girls, great family. My wife is awesome. That's about it. Just turned 47 on Sunday. So,
Congrats on everything, man. You made it to 47, 20 years of marriage, 3 girls. That's all awesome stuff. So what is your garage gym setup?
So I'm pretty simple. Seriously, I'm essentially stall mats over the 2-car garage portion. And I have a squat stand. I actually used to have 4 squat stands when I was training folks, with 300 pounds per squat stand of bumper plates and 6 barbells and a bunch of kettlebells and that kind of stuff. But I've slowly been giving stuff away because I just don't need it as much. I had a back surgery in 2016, and I'm really super limited. So really simple. I'm a minimalist. If we were to describe me, I don't need much.
Awesome. Yeah, I can get on board with that. So I'll get back to the back surgery. I'm curious about that. But what was the big reason behind starting a garage gym?
Funny story. I've been training since about 1986. Not consistently, but when I was 12 years old, I grew up, it was a big bodybuilding rage back then. Had a bunch of uncles that were into bodybuilding. And I grew up in a family of dentists, so they had money. So they opened up a weightlifting gym or bodybuilding gym. I can't really call it weightlifting if I'm going technical right now, because it wasn't Olympic lifts. And so I kind of grew up in that. And so, it was an insult if someone called you little or small. And so at the age of 12, I started doing push-ups in the bathroom and sit-ups and anything I could do. And then my uncle also took part of his weights and put them in his garage. And so we lived 100 yards apart, and I would walk through the horse corrals to go over to his quote unquote garage gym. And I started training in there. I trained in there all through high school. I was a high school athlete. I went to college and played football as a strong safety, and just training's been a part of my life. And then after 1995, when college football ended for me, I kind of lost my reason. So from 1995 till about 2007, when P90X came out. It probably came out before then, but I just was old enough to have it on VHS. I bought it and got into this whole kind of you can do everything at home idea, and I blew up my my plantar fascia in both feet. So I have a host of injuries that I actually kind of want to share. But anyways, that's how it started. I got fit through P90X. And then I realized, there was more to it. And some guy, one of my buddies who did P90X said, hey, you ought to look into this other fitness idea. And I did. And I thought it was cool. I went out and got certified for it. And I decided I was going to train my wife and I at home. And then it turned into me training every single person in the neighborhood. I had a 5 a.m. class and a 6 a.m. class where I trained the husbands at 5 a.m. and the wives at 6 a.m. And then I did a 7 p.m. for a couple of people who couldn't make it in the morning. I'm actually not sure where I actually fit in my training in there because I was still working in the field as an electrician at the time. But yeah, that's kind of the whole garage gym thing. And now I've just scaled way back.
That's awesome, man. That's it's the very first episode of this podcast. I dive into the history of the garage gym athlete and like Arnold and P90X and CrossFit and like all these things. And it sounds like minus the CrossFit, I didn't hear that in there. You went almost through that path, like the same influences. So I think that's really cool.
No, I did. I didn't know if I could say CrossFit on the podcast. I know it's one of your trigger words. But no, that being said, yeah, I went and got my level 1 cert, not because I wanted to open a box, but because I wanted to understand the methodology and the reason. In fact, I applied to go through the GGA program, but we've been going through some things with some emotional health with our kids, and it just has taken up so much time, and I just never set up time to call with you.
Yeah. Hey, we're here whenever we're not going anywhere. So whenever that does work out, but yeah, I did the CrossFit level 1 too. Like I said, I don't hate CrossFit for a lot of reasons. They're doing good things. Like at their level 1 is amazing. What they taught on movement and other stuff. They're just, some of the methodology I disagree with, but yeah, it's not a trigger word. Come on, we're all friends here. So what are some of your goals you're after right now?
So right now, well, looking back into like the CrossFit days, there was that kind of heavy, hard and fast, short metcons. And then though, I know we not really diving into methodology, but if you were just to follow like CrossFit main site and you were going to get this broad, general, inclusive fitness, right? That was kind of the idea. You'd be missing out on certain things. And I noticed that because of my quote unquote bodybuilding phases of fitness, that there wasn't any consistency in building body parts, because I can't even describe to you how much that's ingrained into my mind, that whole kind of physique idea. So I always tell people what I didn't like about CrossFit is you would do, let's say on May 1st, you were doing push-ups and you wouldn't see push-ups again until like May 30th, right? And my pecs would get small. Like that's how a bodybuilder guy would think, right? So whenever I was training people in my garage, it was very, very consistent. I was CrossFit in name only, I guess you would say, but I didn't practice it that way. And I guess if you wanted to throw the idea of concurrent training in there, the along with, I had to look it up because I had no idea what the heck the word meant. I did exactly what your video was saying. I can't remember. I was going to look it up the other day. I think it was like cookies and ice cream or whatever, where you said, okay, I'm going to do CrossFit.
Pickles and pickles,
yeah. I'm going to.
Cookies and ice cream do go together.
Probably better than pickles, but unless you're pregnant, which probably not going to experience. But anyway, so I would do like main site WODs, but then add like, starting strength or Windler's 5-3-1 or whatever, that kind of idea. And that's what I was doing for my athletes. So anyways, now, because we're going to talk about the injury. Because of my injury, I've had to really change some things. I can almost no longer deadlift. I've kind of come to that conclusion. I herniated a disc in my L5S1. It really funny accident. Wasn't weightlifting. I bought my daughter's a horse, and I grew up around horses. Was almost killed by a horse when I was 12. Whole nother story. But I bought my daughter's a horse, and I was training it, and I came off it twice and within 10 minutes and landed on ground on my left hip that it was about as hard as concrete. And all that to say that I went home that night and I kind of had a cold. I sneezed and I felt something crazy happen in my lower back. And what had happened was a disc had bulged enough to sever the nerve that almost severed the nerve that controls your bladder and bowels. And so I went 2 days without being able to pee or poop. If I can be that graphic, for me to go pee, I would literally have to nearly pull a plank position just to let fluids flow out of me. And so so at 3 a.m. one night, my wife's like, "Hey, when are you going to go to the hospital?" I said, "I'm going right now," as I was like packing my backpack, because I knew I was going to have surgery. There was just something completely wrong. Went into the hospital, and I don't know how graphic I can be on the podcast, but I ended up I went into the ER, and I'm laying there and it's cold, because they don't keep that place warm, and you're in your little gown, and you have nothing on. And the doctor comes in and says, "Well, tell me what your symptoms are. What's going on?" I said, "Well, I actually don't really hurt that bad. I feel a lot of pressure in my low back. But the strangest thing, doc, is I can't go to the bathroom, front or rear." And he goes, "Turn over." So I turn over. He pulls my butt cheeks apart and starts pushing on my, on the part that you don't want pushed on. And it was like he was pushing on a fisheye. And he goes, "Can you feel this?" And I'm like, "Nope, can't feel it at all." And he's all, "Hey, nurse, come here." And so after that, every single person in the ER that morning was in there watching this guy push on my rear end in that spot. And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing." He's like, and they're like, "We've never seen this before. We know what this is called. This is called quina equina syndrome. And you've nearly severed this nerve. We need to get you into surgery real fast." And I said, wait
not
a
after
minute,
we poke it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like completely humiliating. And so then the neurosurgeon comes in, and just by like God's grace, he was like the best neurosurgeon in town. And he comes in and he says, "Hey, Robert, we're going to do an MRI." We do an MRI. We come back and he says, "Okay, here's the deal. I can let you go home, and you'll have a colostomy bag and a catheter to the rest of your life, or we can do surgery right now and get this taken care of." He's like, "I think we can save, your paralysis. We can reverse it." And so I looked at him and I said, "Well, don't I get one phone call first?" Because at this point, my wife still had no idea what was going on. So I waddle over, just violated, to the phone in the ER, and I called my wife and said, "Babe, I'm going into surgery." And so, 3 hours after surgery, I was doing air squats. It was amazing. Best surgery I ever had. But the only problem is in the healing process, I slipped and fell down the stairs. So I think I would have been even perfect. But ever since then, I've had like these hip rotation issues, which are pretty common. And Jerred, you might have gone through this too. I don't know what's going on with your back. So I just have to watch it. I have to be careful. So what that did was I did a lot of experimenting since 2016. I was one man, one kettlebell, one man, one barbell. These are things I was playing with that you were putting out just at home. Because I had always, even during the CrossFit realm, I'd always liked what you were doing. I just didn't purchase anything yet. Having said that, I started messing around with one man, one kettlebell, and I found that, man, every time I would swing, that downward motion would just slowing down the momentum of the kettlebell between the legs was just sliding up my back. And so I've really just had to push some things away. I don't kettlebell swing as much. I don't deadlift at all. I've moved to just power cleans only, because you're not lifting as much weight in a deadlift, but you're still getting that violent opening of the hips is what I'm looking for, to kind of keep that power. Oddly enough, I've transitioned to low bar back squat to really just kind of help strengthen the low back, because it forces you into that a little bit more than a high bar back squat. And the other reason why is, for some reason, high bar back squatting is starting to give me massive headaches. So there was two reasons. And so now with my training, because I'm in the Hard to Kill program, because that just kind of describes me, because I'm recovering from other injuries. Like I have 2 impinged shoulders right now, tendonitis in both my knees, plantar fasciitis in both feet. I have a wrist. My left wrist requires surgery. I can't do push-ups like just on my palms. I have to be on some kind of paralegal kind of situation. I'm just kind of making it through, and I'm almost like a 3-block guy, but I don't want to. My pride's like, no, you're not going 3-block because you need to see what everyone else is doing and figure out what you can do within that. And I can, and so I'm basically covering about 2 to 3 blocks a session, but primarily focusing on, okay, I joined the Murph challenge, so I'm doing Murph 2 times a week. And then I'm back squatting and I'm doing the power clean. You did a little circuit, Metcon with power cleans and biceps and triceps. And so I'm kind of repeating those until like my shoulders get, they get healed. So if that answers your question, that's where I'm at.
I mean, it's awesome to hear about that journey and, you know, how you're working around it too, and not using it as an excuse. That's where most people jump to when they have some sort of issue like that. How have you found kind of piecing together Hard to Kill? You know, is it frustrating? Are you comfortable with it? Like, how does it feel overall doing that on a weekly basis?
On a weekly basis right now, because I've made the commitment to do the 52 Murphs this year. And I'm doing it twice a week to try and get caught up as if I started in January. The other reason is,
I was wondering why you said you're doing it twice a week. I was like, wait, did they increase the challenge because of Chris Morgan? Did Morgan do this?
No, Chris Murphy didn't convince me to do it. Or is it Michael Morgan? I'm not sure. Anyway, I was thinking you guys really, when you do the podcast, you should have some sort of charity that every time Chris Morgan's name is said, you guys give $100. But that's a side note. Me piecing that together is really some of the best things that I've learned from you, because I can learn from anybody, and like there are things I definitely don't like about CrossFit. And I can take the good with the bad, you know, and I can spit out the seeds that I don't need for my body, and I can't speak for anyone else. But what I really enjoy about Hard to Kill is you've taught me about zone 2. So in my week, I'm doing a 50-minute zone 2 somewhere in there, and typically it's rowing. What's really interesting about rowing, and this kind of gets into what piece of equipment I might like to add in the future, is after my surgery, I still am numb on half of what they call your saddle. So I would say from the top of my hips to right to the top of my thighs, I'm numb all the way around the circumference of my right side. So literally, and you can think really well on this. Cut your body in half, go around that side, and I'm numb. And it causes, it's like when I sit on the rower, and I don't know who designed the seats on the rower. They need to get together with my pillow guy and come up with something better. But seriously, it's like sitting on, it's like sitting on pins and needles. And by the time I hit 30 minutes, I'm in so much pain to endure. The last 20 minutes is like a mental toughness challenge, and I'm even on a gel pad, because I've taken a gel pad out of my truck, because I can't sit for a long time because I'm constantly sitting on that numb foot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's how it feels. So the nerve damage never completely healed. I'm grateful I can go to the bathroom, but I still can't feel that side of my body. So yeah, the challenge, you know, a lady said to me in my office, she's actually my business partner's wife, and she had known me when I was 40 and I was super fit and I was training people, and I was working for another company. One of the things that I've done in the past is I've rescued 2 electrical contractors from the union they take their name off their license, and I come in and carry the license for them because I'm non-signatory. And I got subbed out to work for the company that I'm now carrying the license for. And so they saw me when I was super fit. And then I got really chubby because of my back injury and some other issues. And she's like, well, I don't know why you worry about being fat so much. She's all, you have a dad bod, and it's super cute. And I tell you what, man, that really sunk in deep. Like it was like, I mean, I hate to cuss or anything, but I was like, F that, you know, I'll show you a dad bod. And so I went on this mission, And so I just told myself, I don't care what, I don't care what Jerred's throwing at me and hard to kill. I'm going to figure out a way to work around and do what I can, but I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to drop the weight. I'm going to get my physique to where I want it to be, and, work on the goals that I can, and quit pissing and moaning about the things I can't do. My kettlebells, I'm about ready to give away. Kyle Schrum was like, "Hey man, you can use them for farmers carries, and Turkish get ups and things like that." So I haven't given them away, but I've considered it, because I don't, P90X at least taught me that I don't need much to build a decent amount of fitness. So that's how I stick with it, is just this whole, it's, you have to be a tiny bit arrogant, and you have to just say, I'm a badass and I'm going to pull this off, and you make that commitment to yourself. When I came into the Facebook page, because I was lingering around on the Team Builder app, I came into it the same way I went into college football. I walked on 2 years out. I took 2 years off from playing high school football into a college football team. Nobody knew who I was. I was recruited to play college football in California, but I wasn't emotionally mature enough to stay. So after 2 years, I decided I didn't want to go back to that embarrassing place. I went to a smaller school where I could be a big fish in a little pond. And I just went into the room and said, okay, who's in my spot? And you kind of have to do that. And I don't want it to sound arrogant or like there's this whiteboard, leaderboard kind of idea, but it's a mental game that you play with yourself, where you go, okay, who's the best in this room and how can I kick his ass? Because he's in my spot. And you find that that's what drives you, or at least that's what drives me. And I don't know that this would speak to women, or it would just speak to aggressive men who've played sports, right? I don't want to be second team. I want to be first team. So I want to see who's the best at the things that I want to do. And I'm going to look at their numbers and I'm going to chase them. Now, in reality, will I ever catch them? Heck no. But they're in my head in the garage. And I'm like, okay, these guys are working right now. So I'm working too. And I'm going to do my best to outwork.
That's awesome. That mentality speaks to me very much. So it's basically how I live my life. So I like that. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people. Some people maybe not, but the whole screw the dad bod and who do I have to kill? Like that's the deep rooted version of me that we don't get to talk about as much, but yeah, that's awesome, man.
No. And it doesn't work for everybody. It just works for me. And it's not real. It's all fake. It's just a game. And so don't take me serious when I say it. It's just a mental game I have to play with myself to motivate myself. And that's what I was trying to teach my athletes when I was training in the garage, is you have to find what motivates you. And I think the gifting of a good coach will help someone find that drive in themselves.
Yeah. It was, I always pull this out because I've heard a couple athletes talk about this kind of idea that you're mentioning. And David Goggins also mentions that in his book. And like, that's what he did throughout his whole life. He would make up stories about people. He's like, oh, this person, they hate me, and they don't want me to succeed. And like, right. And then he always kind of said that stuff in the book. And I was like, but did that person really hate you? And it wasn't until the end of the book where he's like, I know none of that stuff's true. He's like, they're not even thinking about me. He's like, but right. It's the story I had to tell myself to get that competitive edge, to get myself going. And so I think that goes a very long way.
Yeah. And he also says, because I've listened to a lot of his podcasts, is he talks about how he made up this kind of superhero image called Goggins. So if you ever follow the Team Never Quit stuff when they interview him, he talks about it. He's like, I created this, I'm Goggins. I'm not David. I'm this, like, I don't know, like an Avenger or something. Yeah. And you really kind of have to do that. And so when I post something about like, here was my motivational song of the day, or here was my motivational thought, it's really because I'm trying to capture what that means for me, because I'm kind of in the firearms industry too. I work for a company that sells sniper rifles and AR-15s. They're all custom built, and I get the chance to be around some SF guys. And one of them in particular, we took a class. I hired him and I flew him out to Nevada to train me and a bunch of guys. And we're all kind of scared, because here's this Delta operator, right? He comes out to teach us how to shoot. And so we're thinking, okay, we're all huddled around him at the game because we don't know how the class is going to go or whatever. And for a lot of the people, it's their first time even taking a class. And he goes, "Who's the most badass motherfucker standing here?" I'm like, wow, not like gun safety or anything. And nobody said anything until this one ex-Marine guy goes, "It's me." And he goes, "You're right." And he said, "If I can teach you anything this weekend, it's that you have to have that mindset about yourself, because we're not playing with, little BB guns today or anything like that. We're talking about self-defense. And if you don't believe in you, you're the only person you bring to the fight. So when I come into training and you see me say, find your fight or whatever like that, it's like you have to dig deep and you have to find out who the fighter is in you and bring that person out into your training, because there is, unless it's the zone 2 thing, intensity is what brings the results, right? And so that whole mindset is always in my head.
That's awesome. So much great stuff there.
Good way for framing.
All right, man. Well, let's
is that what they call it, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into some of these other questions. I'm interested to see where you stand on them. What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
So I was thinking about this, and it's not because it's a workout I made up. It was the environmental conditions. When I turned 40, there was 2 garage gyms that would kind of quasi compete against each other on a daily basis, but primarily it was me and the other garage gym owner, who was 60 miles away, who had his own classes going on at the same time. We would always compete in the same WODs. And so on my 40th birthday, I had 20 people in my cul-de-sac doing this workout, and I borrowed a bunch of sleds from a local CrossFit gym where I would once in a while go in and coach. And we didn't think about the environmental conditions when we first started. We started 8 in the morning so that some of the people could work out in the cool weather, right? By the time the workout made it to us, it was now 105, and the tar, everyone who lives in a neighborhood knows that your street never stays solid. It cracks, it gets all these vein looking cracks going every direction. Well, the week prior, the city had come and put like that tar in the cracks and filled them all. So at 105, you're pulling these sleds, and every time you hit one of those cracks, your sled would come to a dead stop because it was like it got caught in the La Brea tar pit. And so you had to put extreme extra effort to pull, I think we had like 150 pounds on the sleds, out of this tar every 15 yards. And so the workout was, and I don't remember the workout exactly, but it's traditional CrossFit style, 40 reps of every single dang thing you can think of. But in between those movements, you had to drag the sled 50 yards, run 600 yards, come back to your sled, and then pull the sled. So 2 different movements. One was a sled drag over the shoulder, and one was hand over hand pull 50 yards. But every 15 yards, you were getting stuck in this stinking tar. And at one point in the workout, the CrossFit coach that was my rival and great friend since like the 5th grade, I saw him laying underneath one of the trucks, and the guys who were counting his reps and stuff were pouring water on him. And he was laying underneath the truck to get shade because it was so dang hot. And so consequently, it ended up being the hardest work that I ever had done because of the extreme factors. Because we were both used to training at like 6 in the morning, right? We'd never seen like 105 degrees, and the physical conditions of the tar, just getting the sleds caught up in them. It was miserable getting the tar off the sleds when it was over. But yeah, I remember crawling between movements for that particular workout. So it wasn't because it was my workout or anything special. It was just, the environmental conditions just really smoked us that day.
Yeah, that can change everything.
Yeah, you can take anything to make it miserable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think there's like, if you're a morning trainer like I am, and you want to test your mental toughness, try it at noon, and then try it in the heat of the day, when it's the hottest, and then try it when it's the coldest, because your Murph time is not going to be the same in any given environmental condition if we're talking Murph times.
Yeah. Nope. I had from the months that basically here end of May until October, I get like a 10-minute handicap on Murph because that's just the truth of the matter. I'm sure it's very similar in Nevada. All right. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Well, I just listened to your book again. It does come down to just doing what you don't want to do. And you know what it is. Everyone knows what it is. If that movement comes up in the programming for that day, and you're just like, man, I don't want to do it, then that's the one you have to do. It's literally just getting out of bed when you don't want to and going through and doing it. One of the reasons why I'm doing Murph is, twice a week, is because once seems like it would just be too easy anyway. And so you just hit that point, like around, for me, it's like between rounds 10 and 15, where my mind's just like, hey, you should quit. No one cares. This isn't for money. And you just got to push through. And so whatever it is that makes you find out what it is that makes you want to quit and blow through those gates every time. That's the only way to do it.
My brain, that's my biggest probably slap in the face self-talk that happens to me anytime I'm trying to do something hard. Let's just say in fitness, is no one cares. Like, and I always have to fight back on that one. I'm like trying to go as fast as I can on Murph and hit a PR. And I like, that's what self-talk hits me is like, yeah, no one cares about what you're doing right now. I'm like, all right, get out of here. I got to go faster.
Yeah. Does one more round of Murph practice really matter?
Yeah. Does it? Is it gonna change the world?
And it's that slippery slope voice, right? Because in all logical senses, it's probably true. You could be like, yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter if I went 15 seconds faster today, but the decision there is the slippery slope for what could turn into the rest of your life, making that decision over and over of just a marginal decrease in your ability to be better is just over and over. Like, how much does this one matter? How much does that matter? And then you're on that slippery slope.
I think one thing for the older guys out there, if you were in shape before, you kind of started this challenge and at one time and you remember how your body felt. I mean, and this will be something that you guys will face as you get older is I have to jump up like 8 to 9 inches to get to my pull-up bar. And coming down, it's not the jump up, even though the jump up sucks with the 20-pound vest on. Is coming down, it really wrecks my knees. And then you get to those runs and I have an impinged hip. And so I must look like a train wreck running, to be honest with you. But when all your joints are starting to hurt as you get older, you get this whole other level of self-talk, like you really don't have to do this anymore. Everyone would give you grace and say, you know what, you're 47 or you're 56. Why don't you just peter out and go do Pilates? No one would fault you for that. And so you start to get those self-talk things going on in your head, and self-talk's a huge thing. I mean, I didn't know anything about it really until, I went through some depressions and had to go to counseling. And it's like, wow, what we tell ourselves is super powerful. So going back to your video yesterday about Murph is, the other part of it too is just looking at it and going, this was a guy who took a bullet for me. I can't quit on him. I don't care if my Murph time's 75 minutes. I will not quit because this guy took bullets for me, kind of thing. And so those are the kinds of thoughts that go through my head.
Awesome. Now, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I'm going to have to say, because I'm a minimalist, I don't know. Nevada doesn't have any trees. So I've listened to podcasts where guys were even like maybe you yourself, well, you can find a tree to do a pull up on. You look around Nevada, you're not
in the desert.
Not in the desert.
I can't.
Right. So I would need a pull up bar. To me, a training vest is the essential piece of equipment that's not gym to me. It's something that I want to have and have outside of the gym. So I would have it anyways. So I would need some way to work the lats, if you will. So yeah, I would have to have a pull-up bar.
Joe, we should probably revisit these questions for ourselves at some point, because I think I'm leaning towards that being my answer these days too. Like a freestanding, like military style pull-up bar, because I don't know, I almost don't care about anything else. Like
all the other stuff is fun, but if we're just talking about one thing for the rest of my life, it might just be the pull-up bar.
That's why I like rings as an answer.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah, but I would need something to hang the rings from.
Yeah, that was an issue here. I mean, I finally found a little bit of a rafter thing that we have an overhang that hangs from, but it still was kind of a process.
Yeah.
But as a minimalist, what would be something you'd want to add to your gym?
And this comes back to the joints issues as I get older and I want to get into more zone 2 training. And rowing hurts my butt so bad. I've actually thought about buying one of the old school Nordic track cross country skiers. I know that sounds weird, but I'm just strictly thinking zone 2 and longevity.
What about a ski erg, like from Concept 2? Are they different? Are you talking about the ones where the skis actually move? Like
yes.
Oh
yes.
yeah, so man, I haven't seen one of those in a while. Yeah.
No, and they're made out of wood, and you can still get them for about $800. And I thought, the first time I'd ever seen anyone use one of those was one of my best friend's dads had one and lost a ton of weight using it. And
I think my grandpa had one when I was growing up for a while. Yeah, because I remember he had it when I was so young I couldn't use it. Like I wasn't big enough to to use it. But those things are awesome. That brings me back.
I mean, there's lots of value to cross country skiing as far as fitness is concerned, but to me it's just a way to elevate the heart rate without going on these long zone 2 runs that are going to pound my joints. I tell people 2 things. You only get, and especially in the trades, because I've trained a lot of apprentices, and I tell them, you got to make your money now because you only get so many bendovers, and one day you're not going to come back up. And so if you're thinking about longevity, I was thinking that's pretty low impact. It's working the upper body and lower body, and I can do some zone 2. That's what I like about the rowers. You're working upper body and lower body, and you can still do zone 2 training as opposed to just limiting yourself to running.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
I'm not a fan of the elliptical bike. I just trying to think of something different. It's too bulky for my garage.
Airdyne, I guess, would be full body movement. It's not, you can control how much you want on the arms.
But I have to sit, and that's the problem. Yeah. And my ass starts hurting so bad that I can't. And I was talking to one of the guys, is like, that's kind of what makes CrossFit sexy, is you can get some good results in like 15 minutes a day. But if you really want to get into a real broad fitness, you're going to have to do the zone 2 training, and it's going to have to be comfortable enough to where you can withstand at least 60 minutes. And I can't. And I just can't because of that nerve damage in my body.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you can remove the seat from an Airdyne and just hate your life. Yeah, not something you probably sustain for 60 minutes. Right. All right, man. Well, this conversation has been awesome. So I want to get to the last question of the show. What's the best advice you have for all the garage gym athletes out there?
I think the biggest thing is everyone said things like stay consistent, but I think you need to find your drive. You got to find what you got to become that cat that's been pushed up against the wall and by some dogs and just find your fight and just get it every day. Find what drives you, find what it is that makes you tick and utilize that, even if it's just a mind game, to make you better. Because that's where you're going to find the results.
Awesome, Robert. Well, great conversation. I honestly don't think this will be the last time that we are chatting on the podcast. I look forward to doing it again, but I appreciate your time and for being a garage gym athlete and everything you shared with us today. Man, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.